have a positive view of this whole preparation journey beyond the results.
So it means that if somebody puts their heart and soul into it, even if they are not into soldiers preparation, it is possible, and you feel that it takes 2 years.
I was investing more time in understanding the concepts rather than topic-wise notes or something.
When you decided to go with English literature, did this thought come to your mind that you're choosing a subject which may not really help you in your prelims at all?
When I was looking at the list of the optional subjects, my first choice was English literature. I was not thinking about the other optionals at all. My first prelims was, I think, it was a very amateur attempt. Doing the NCRTs properly. I did the NCRTs multiple times. And NCRTs plus Lakshmikant. I wanted to thank you because right from the starting newspaper session, the NCRT session, your essay session, I've attended everything, and my strategy has been very similar to whatever you were.
Yeah, I can actually relate to that. Whenever you speak all the points, okay, it reminded me of my day's preparation as well. For the audience of this session, so we have with us Ms. Vaikavi, who has cracked this year and Civil Service Exam 2025. So she's joined here to share her experience about this examination process. So thank you. And I'd like to ask you, starting with the first question about the fact that you had cracked this exam in your very second attempt itself. And I feel in these recent years, the number of people who have been cracking this exam in their first or second attempt is a little lesser than what it earlier used to be when I was an aspirant. Do you think, looking back at your preparation, if at all there could have been some course corrections you could do, right? Is it possible to expedite your chances of making it to the rank list? Or is it the nature of the exam that you have to spend 2 years or 2 attempts and only then you have a chance of cracking in this examination? What is your opinion on that?
Sir, in my opinion, I needed 2 years to get here, because before this foundation course that I joined in June 2023, I was only thinking about NEET PG. I was actually preparing for NEET PG. So the 1 year foundation was needed, and though I was sincere with the classes and everything, my understanding was all over the place and it was not very consolidated. That is why I was not able to clear my first prelims, which I gave right after the course. And only when I sat with myself for the next 1 year and I read the books by myself and I framed my own understanding of all the subjects, I was able to get to a place where I was confident enough to even give the exam. My first prelims was, I think, it was a very amateur attempt.
Okay. So you mean to say that your initiation into civil service preparation actually happened only after you finished your dentistry? So
Yes.
Until then, you were not into this preparation at all?
I was not even thinking about it. I was actually studying for NEET PG.
Oh,
Only.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it means that if somebody puts their heart and soul into it, even if they are not into civil service preparation, it is possible, and you feel that it takes 2 years, right?
Yes, sir. I feel it takes 2 years.
2 years. Right. Okay. And despite you coming from a medical background, you have gone for English literature as your optional subject. I can understand that it comes out from your upbringing where you have been into reading English literature and all of that. When you had this question of choosing an optional for this exam, did you have two thoughts about it in the sense, do you have to go with English literature or do you have to go with some other subject which conventionally people opt for?
Sir, when I was looking at the list of the optional subjects, my first choice was English literature. I was not thinking about the other optionals at all, to be honest. And when I opened the book list for English literature, it was so inspiring, and I really wanted to deepen my knowledge in literature as well through this exam. And I had a sense of familiarity with all the books. English literature is basically 14 novels, 60 poems, 5 plays, and the history of English literature, plus literary criticism. Maybe I am not a graduate, but still, regarding the 14 novels, I had already read Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, and I know the world of Jane Austen. I know her other novels also. And coming to Charles Dickens, I have not read Hard Times, which is there in the syllabus, but I have read A Tale of Two Cities, and I I felt like I had the competence to read a Dickens novel, and all the other 12 novels were completely new. But I used to read Leo Tolstoy, George Orwell, who were from that period. And coming to plays also, since I was in theater, I had the habit of reading scripts, so it was not something new. And poetry also, I used to read before,
Okay.
so there was a sense of familiarity. That's why I chose it.
Okay. And did that choice of selecting English literature save a lot of your time for soldiers preparation for with respect to other general study subject, or is it like you used to give 5 to 6 hours of time every single day over the last 2 years with respect to English literature also?
Sir, I gave a lot of time to English literature, to be honest. I actually like the subject. That's why it doesn't feel like studying. But I think it needs even more hard work than GS, because for GS, we can write points and get away with it. But
Right.
for English optional, every answer it has to be good. The writing has to be good. And there should be some, I think the examiner should be interested in the paper and not
Mm.
just I don't think they will just be looking for points. So, and the writing practice needed is also higher. And most of my prep over the last 2 years, I think, went to English
Well,
literature.
literature. All right. It reminds me of myself as well. Even though I had history as my optional subject, I remember the only subject I was studying throughout my preparation was history all the time. And it's like GS became something like a side affair. So, but you were able to score really well in general studies papers as well. So, can you give us an idea about how much of time allocation did you spend with respect to mastering your mains aspects of general studies, or is it like something that comes without you even putting in a conscious effort to master mains?
So, the mains process, I think, was quite organic and it evolved over time. And when I was in Chennai for the foundation course, I was only reading those books, the novels that were there in English literature syllabus most of the time. And I just go with the classes. There'll be this pre-fit test, and they'll ask to prepare answers for 2, 3 questions. I just go with them, and I was preparing my English literature. And after that, from August to I think some September, October, both prelims and mains went together because I did not even understand the basic NCRTs properly. So both were going side by side, and I was giving prelims tests also, and I was doing mains answer writing also.
You mean
And
this was in your during your first attempt?
yes, sir. No, sir. First attempt, I was fully in Chennai only for the foundation course.
Okay.
So when I was in Chennai, mostly I was only reading the novels and the poems that were there for my English literature optional syllabus.
Okay. So that was the
Main,
first year when you were attending classes. So after your
yes, sir.
classes, you were only spending your time mastering your optional.
Yes, sir. Not only, but
Majorly.
maybe half of the time.
Yeah.
And the other half, I took to study the NCRTs, and I was following the test series properly. I was
Mhm.
following the test schedule properly. I was within the schedule. And after coming back to Pondi, I think for the first 4, 5 months, again, my mains preparation was regarding English literature optional. I was writing so many answers and I was sending it to my mentor, getting it corrected.
Right.
I think half of the prep, maybe 60% of the prep went to English literature optional, and the remaining 40%, it was prelims plus mains integrated GS preparation, and not only mains, because I think that I was lacking the basic concept clarity also. And only after clearing the prelims, I was fully into mains. It was kind of organic, not
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So there was never something like a separate topic-based preparation for mains, which went in as a part of your preparation for general studies.
Yes, sir. I tried to do the topic based, but it didn't quite materialize because there were too much, and I had to understand the basics properly. I was investing more time in understanding the concepts rather than topic wise notes or something. Maybe I studied world history, post independence consolidation, these topics, but others just I was
Yeah,
preparing.
I understand those gray areas where you don't have one single book to prepare. Maybe you did not focus on them initially at all. Maybe only during the time between your prelims and mains you focused on those areas.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, so when you decided to go with English literature, did this thought come to your mind that you're choosing a subject which may not really help you in your prelims at all, right? Or were you just confident? You thought, okay, whatever it is, my passion was in English literature. So others, its utility in prelims, did it not even figure in your decision making at all?
So for the first 2-3 months, I was completely like, I took this decision, and there were so many people who tried to talk me out of it. Especially people who were English professors, PhD people, people with MA English. Those were the ones who were telling me not to take this optional at all. But I did not. I couldn't let go of this
Let go of it.
opportunity of
Right, right.
reading these books and everything. And I knew that maybe I did not have the theoretical knowledge for literature, but
Mhm.
I had this, some practical knowledge was there, and I knew that I could do it in. And Coming to the FOMO, I did have, because initially my test scores were also low. And I thought my friends who had history optional or geography optional, they were
Yeah.
doing better. FOMO came, but it was not strong enough to pull me out of my choice.
Right. Okay. So despite that, you have mentioned to me that you were able to score 100 plus in your prelims in 2025, right? So can you please share some insights as to how was it made possible? Getting 100 plus, it's not just 1 or 2 marks more than the cutoff, but it's like a really a good margin that you have. So can you please share some insights as to how confidently you can go to the exam hall, and what all went in your preparation process for prelims?
Sir, first would be doing the NCRTs properly. I did the NCRTs multiple times, and NCRTs plus Lakshmikant. I think this is basically my source for prelims. And and I did so many tests. Right after my failure in my first prelims, I started doing some questions every day, just randomly, not studying, but just doing those questions.
Right, right.
And by December, I started focusing only on prelims. I did the NCRTs properly, the basic books properly, and the PYQs I did multiple times. And earlier, I did not understand. The people used to say there is a philosophy behind every question. I did not understand those things. And I invested more time in understanding those aspects and not just studying. And third is doing the test series properly with consistency and not missing any test series, being disciplined. I think these three are the ones. But in the exam hall, I was not feeling quite confident, because even in my first attempt, I knew 30-35 questions. And in my second attempt also, I knew the same 30-35 questions. I expected something better. I thought I studied the whole year, and then I'll
Mm,
know half of the paper and I will just clear it just like that. But again, it was the same. So I was panicking. But I think the guessing skills that I developed over the year helped. I was not thinking that I would clear this prelims last year.
oh, okay. So when aspirants talk about this guessing skills, I think that's more like an intuition that slowly develops when you sit and keep on looking at the PYQs all the time,
Yes.
right? What do you do with PYQs? Is it like you just look at it, oh, you know the answer, you just move on, or is it like you do something with those questions? Do you do some source tracing with that, or is it not like that? Or do you go and browse something about it to know why is it even asked? So may I know what was your philosophy that you were mentioning about what do you do with PYQs?
Sir, first I actually read the statements again and again and again, even if I know the answer. Certain statements always tend to be right, and certain statements tend to be wrong. For instance, if they mention some international organization, this
Okay.
is created by World Bank or something, it tends to be wrong all the time. And I used to do some browsing with PYQs. For example, if they ask about Kolkata port, maybe I would learn something about the other ports also, some basic things. And I also did source tracing. I interestingly found so many things in NCRTs, like 109 money bill. It was there in NCRT.
Mhm.
I made the 109 question wrong because I was overthinking. But this same number 109 was there in the NCRT. So I found that NCRTs had a lot of relevance. And just seeing the statements again and again, I think it builds intuition.
Okay, that's right. So when you say you referred NCRTs, so can I assume that you referred history NCRTs, all 6 or 9 of them? May I know how many NCRTs did you read for history?
Sir, I read the themes 1 to 3 and the
Yeah.
old NCRTs, Satish Chandra,
Okay. R.
Bipan
S. Sharma,
Chandra,
Sadhchandra,
R.S.
Bipan Chandra.
Sharma, the old ones and the new 3. And I also did like skimming of 6 to 10.
And what about Spectrum?
Sir, initially I read Spectrum, and but I was not so. It was not like a story. It was
That's
facts
right.
and
Yeah.
facts. I found Bipan Chandra NCRT to be more interesting. But from Spectrum, I made like a 30-pager notes that I could use.
Oh, so you had the habit of making notes for prelims.
Sir, not exactly. Since Spectrum was too big, and I believe that some questions are being asked, and a 10 pager in Spectrum can be condensed into one page. So the entire Spectrum could be made into 30-40 pages so that I need not touch the book again. So for that, I made notes. But for prelim specifically,
Okay.
initially I tried making notes, but
Hmm.
after giving so many tests, I got a sense that these are not needed, and I stopped.
Right. Yeah, because the biggest question with respect to prelims note making is what do you leave and what do you include in your notes, right? Everything seems to be important.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Sir, I
so
think that
yes,
comes by making the wrong notes for like few
okay.
months.
Mm.
And after making the wrong notes, I realized, okay, this is not needed, and I will stop that. And whatever I need, I'll only make that. Effectively, towards the end, my notes were the mistakes that I made in my tests. I think we have to make the wrong notes to realize which is not
Which is okay.
needed.
That's nice, right? And what was your daily habit with reading newspapers? Were you very regular in terms of reading newspaper for the last 2 to 3 years of your preparation, or is it like on and off, or only when necessary? May I know some impressions of yours on the habit of reading newspaper on a daily basis?
Sir, I read newspapers every day. Maybe there might have been a few days where I did not read. More than 95% of the days, I would read the
Would have
papers
read.
regularly.
And how long did it take for you? And how long does it take for you? Because you're going preparing for the upcoming year's attempt as well. So you should be reading newspaper even now also after
Yes.
cracking this exam. So how long does it take for you to read newspapers?
Sir, initially it was like 5 hours or something, 5 to 4 to 3, and over the months it reduced. And during prelims and mains, it would be around 1 hour. And during the interview, I took more time. And now I think,
Yeah,
yes, sir. I think now I would take 1 hour max.
and you read only one newspaper, which is Hindu, I guess.
Yes, sir. One newspaper, which is Hindu.
Have you tried reading Indian Express?
Yes, sir. During my interview, I read both. I read both Hindu and Indian Express.
Okay.
But I am kind of accustomed with
Mhm.
the language of Hindu.
Hindu paper, right?
So I
Okay.
stick to that.
All right. So in the last 3 prelims, I think I'm able to see a trend where it appears as if current affairs dominates more than the static part, right? Is it a correct impression in the first place? And even if it's so, uh, when it comes to your time beyond your English literature preparation, so let's say you have X amount of time in your hand, how do you allot it between current affairs and static textbooks? Is it like your current affairs means just your newspaper, or is there some other aspect to your current affairs preparation beyond your habit of reading Hindu newspaper as well?
Sir, I think 70% of the time I would give for statics, because I believe that most of the questions are from statics, and the current affairs that UPSC asks, I feel like they are quite random, like World Toilet Organization. I don't think that that is a major current affair. So,
Right.
uh,
And they have, and they such kind of questions have very less repeat value also. It's like 1 year, that's it, and UPSC is done with that, those kind of questions.
yes, sir. So I was mostly focused on the static, but apart from newspapers, before the exam, I did refer to PT 365. I gave a
Okay.
good read of PT 365, and I made small notes out of it also. And I keep using the internet, the chat GPT, uh,
Right.
both during static studies and also during current affairs. It is just there, and I would find out something if I want to. If I feel like I want to, I would be using it regularly.
Right. And I'm sure even ChatGPT has evolved as during your course of preparation. Right now, I
Yes.
feel it's such a very useful tool rather than what it was when you initially started your preparation. So, is it like if and you have clearly put it that for both static as well as current affairs, you also utilize AI tools as well. So, would you suggest a fresher to use AI to make sense of this exam process first, or is it like they have to first develop this understanding about this exam and then make use of the AI tools? What is the right way to go about it? Because these days I find a lot of freshers, what they do is they don't even read the Hindu editorial properly fully. Rather, they just copy paste it, ask ChatGPT for a summary, and they think their job is done. So, what is your impression about it?
Sir, I think one has to make a sense of this exam, and only then will we be able to know how to use AI properly. And in my opinion, I had during my interview, I would put the editorial in ChatGPT and try to make quick notes, but I was not happy with it because the way I understand the article is more nuanced, and there is a perspective to it than what the AI
Right,
would give. And I think even for mains, I did not use AI too much. I depended on my writing only. It is for prelims mostly that if I don't understand the concept, I would ask AI to explain it to a 5-year-old, explain it to a 10-year-old,
right,
something
right.
like that. And I would understand. And if I do not understand a few words, for example, rights are not absolute but qualified. And what does that mean? I would
Okay,
put
okay,
that and I would learn. I think it is only a supplement, and one has to get a sense of the exam. And even for doing the CSAT properly, for the RC reading comprehension properly,
right.
I think we need focus. I think it is all about focus, and only when we focus on an editorial for 2 to 3 minutes continuously, we will be able
Right.
to get there.
Yeah, I would concur with you in the sense the mental stamina that you need in the exam hall when you face your CSAT paper, where one RC passage after the other, you need that stamina, and that comes only with the sustaining. I mean, when you sustain yourself reading editorials every single day. So it's rightly put. And now you spoke about the editorials and reading comprehension passage. Can you please share some ideas about what was your approach towards CSAT paper as a medical professional when you first entered into this journey? I'm sure looking at CSAT paper, you would have felt probably the passages to be easy. How did you go about then mastering the other parts of CSAT paper?
So initially, I thought I gave a few CSAT papers from 22, 21. I did not do 23 for some reason. I do not know why. And I was getting comfortably above 85. So I thought that CSAT was my cup of tea and I would not bother. But only towards the end of the foundation course, I realized that 2023, people were talking about 2023, and I realized, oh my God, I'm well equipped. So I joined a class. I joined a foundation course where they taught all the basics. I rely on the basics of all the chapters. I could do a basic problem from all chapters,
Right, right.
and I when I see the question paper, I try to do some 20 to 25 basic problems from mathematics, and I do all the questions from reading comprehension.
Reading comprehension. All right. Okay. So you said that your basic source of preparation across all subjects was NCRTs. Can you please share your approach for economy in that case? Was it also confined to NCRTs? Because the nature of questions that is asked in prelims as well as mains, I think you have very less number of questions directly testing the basic concepts from economy, right? So, what is your game plan when it comes to managing prelims questions? And I'll come to the mains question after that.
Okay, sir. So for prelims, I did not even know the meaning of GDP. And so many words I was hearing for the first time when I started this UPSC preparation. So for economy, I was completely dependent on the faculty. And when during the foundation course, I started getting a sense of these words, and I used to be very sincere with classes and test discussions with economy specifically. And my scores were abysmally low in economics, and it took me the whole 2 years, I think, to even understand economy by giving repeated tests again and again, I would think that I understood it. Maybe appreciation or depreciation, even basic questions. I would think that I understood it, and when I write the test, I would even get the basics wrong. So for me, prelims preparation with respect to economy was completely dependent on the faculty. For during the foundation course, the way they teach and the test discussions, and even before prelims, I used to attend a test series. It's called Camp by Vajiram. So I attend that discussion also properly. So discussions is what helped
Right.
me in economy.
So for a layman like you, when it comes to economy, you would probably be suggesting an approach where you try to maximize your exposure from different channels and sources as much as possible, right? So that
Yes,
seems to be your approach.
yes, sir. PYQs and so many tests and so many discussions, and even in online, there are YouTube discussions of
Right.
test series. I would just open it and I just listen to them speak. And I think only with their understanding I was able to get it.
That's nice. Okay. Now that brings me to the mains question. When it comes to GS paper 3 for economy, right? So there are 4 questions which are asked, and out of them this year, 2 questions were very specific. It's only when you know that you will be able to write something. So the question was, one was about inequality adjusted HDI, and the other one was about fiscal health index of the states or something like that, right? So did you attempt those questions in means? And if you have attempted, how did you attempt them? Were you well prepared for those topics beforehand, or is it like you manage something relevant to what you understood and made sense of the question? Because these are the only 2 ways you could have answered that question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
I attended those questions, sir. But even before giving mains, I had this thing that I will only know 10 questions, and the remaining 10 I have to do some improv. And in inequality adjusted HDI, I actually knew it because it was part. I studied HDI, and there is gender related HDI, and there was inequality
Okay.
adjusted HDI. But I just knew one line about it. It was there in my notes,
Okay.
just one line about it. And but they're not asking how to calculate IHDI.
Right.
They're just asking what is the difference between HDI and inequality adjusted HDI. So I should have given some introduction. I don't remember what I wrote, but I remember making a table and coming up with 4 points. Maybe I would say that HDI is more normative. In inequality adjusted HDI, it accounts for development, and maybe something like that. I would have come up
Yeah,
with
I
something.
understand. All
And
of us, we clear this exam by this approach. In the sense,
yes, sir.
we write things that are relevant, even though it may not be the perfect answer. So that's how we end up managing. So it's the same case with you as well.
Yes, sir. And fiscal health index. I knew what is fiscal health, and they're asking how fiscal health index will help the economy. And I just maybe I did not
Improvise
give
your
too much
answer. Right.
emphasis on the index word. I just wrote how measuring
Yeah,
fiscal health
right.
will help the economy.
All right. Um, so what is going to be your plan for improving your scores in general studies across all the papers? Do you have you given a thought to it?
Sir, I'm
maybe
thinking about
maybe
it.
what you share could be eye opening for somebody who's yet to even give their first mains.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think last year I was figuring it out. I was till the last moment. I was juggling between GS and optional, and I was so confused. But now I think that I would do more of answer writing practice and less of figuring it out, less of understanding how this whole thing works. I think more answer writing practice is what I would be doing. And for GS2, I think I forgot in the statics. That is where they asked about tribunals, how the US and India comparative constitution, those
Yeah.
kind of questions also I forgotten. So statics had to be set right.
All right.
I think, uh, and I would copy paste some of the same things that I did earlier, but more practice and less figuring out, I think.
May I say that in addition to more practice, does it have to do something with a skill of better anticipating areas? In the sense, just imagine if you were in a position to know that that presumptive pardon question were you able to anticipate that in the first place in this year's examination in GS paper to where a question comparing Indian president's pardoning power
Yes.
versus US president's pardoning power? Did you know the idea of presumptive pardon before you even went into the exam hall?
Sir, I did not know about the
Presumpt,
presumptive
yeah,
pardon.
sorry, preemptive pardon.
Preemptive
Right.
pardon. But sir, that question was very long, and that preemptive pardon was just one part, and there were so many other things, and I
Right.
took the other things and I did that. I did not anticipate it, sir.
What you are mentioning is a very important point in the sense if there are the areas, parts in the question where we are not very comfortable with, it's better to tackle those parts that we are comfortable and try to fill in spaces.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Yeah, that's a very important idea. And another aspect that I wanted to discuss with you is regarding your essay writing skills. So even before your means, whenever you have been sharing your essay papers with me, I felt I was reading the best essays. So where did you come across with such examples, and how did you develop your essay writing skill? Is it like something that has to be developed over a very long period of time since your school days, or is there some hope for even those aspirants who may not be really good at English, but once they enter into this preparation journey, is it possible for them to improve? What is your impression on that?
So for me, with respect to essay, I have been reading a lot since childhood, and I
Mm.
have been writing also. But I also had to cater my writing to this UPSC. I can't be coming up with some creative content, weird content, and writing. I had that problem actually. Uh, that might not click with the person who's reading it. So I had to pull myself into a specific area of writing. For that, I think I would have written some 8 to 9 essays, and I did
You
not have
you mean
any
eight to nine essays throughout your preparation journey, or is it between your prelims and means?
throughout the 2 years.
Okay.
And the anecdotes and all, I think it just, sir, I don't prepare anything. And I think reading those 4 topics and which topic really speaks to me, and that I would just start and thinking about it and coming up with
Right.
ideas. And I think anybody can build any skill, in my opinion. It's not like a bond thing or something. Because people who are not so into books or not so into
Right.
writing, they have scored better than me, my
120
own friends.
plus. Yeah.
So I think it is just subjective, very subjective.
Okay. So when you start writing your essay, you write it without breaking the essay at all, right? For 10 pages, it just goes on and on and on. You don't give any headings, subheadings, nothing. So is it deliberate, or is it the best way you can express your ideas?
Sir, I actually tried I experimented with both. But the flow that I was able to achieve without subheadings, that was better for me. And I always enjoy a kind of writing where I don't know where it starts and I don't know where it ends. It just flows and it's just over. I don't know how it got. I try to achieve that. Maybe I'm still there, but I'm trying to achieve that. But
Right.
these are the kind of writing that I really enjoy, because if there are some breaks in the middle, I think it deliberately breaks our focus. And writing continuously keeps a sense of flow. And I think even if we break it into subheadings, I think when the break should be meaningful. I do not think that when I was giving those breaks, I was not able to achieve those meaningful kind of breaks, which gives a good reading experience.
Right.
Maybe I should practice more to achieve that. But with this continuous writing, I was able to achieve some sense of flow at least. So that worked better, I guess.
All right. All right. One last question on your mains aspect. This is regarding ethics paper, right? How do you manage it? A fresher, if they were to start reading on ethics, there are just so many books in the market, right? Would you suggest a bookish method to get initiated into reading ethics, preparing for ethics, or is it something like you sit and you wonder as to what to browse, depending on the topic syllabus sheet that you have in your hand?
Okay.
What was your way of preparation?
Sir, I actually enjoyed the classes by Pati sir, and I think he has a certain language to him.
Right.
And I was thinking that if I were able to bring that language, then it would make sense. Maybe I wouldn't achieve that same level of expertise, but if I would like to write like him, I also read his blogs also. If I'm able to achieve that kind of language, that would make sense, is what I thought. And sir, and I don't think reading some book will help. I think it is a collective thing that happens, and also self-reflection helps. Like, what are we doing when we are put in a situation? How we are reacting? Those kind of
Right.
self-reflection helps. And also, writing practice is very important because at the end of the day, we have to fill all those 60 pages, and filling those pages, I think it is the most difficult thing, and I also struggled with it a lot.
Yeah, because in ethics, when you look at the case studies, when you look at it, normally you have a black and white perspective on it, right? What is right is what is legal, and the other way is if it's not as per the rule book or the law, then it's not right. So that's the only perspective with which you generally tend to look at all the case studies. But then extending it beyond that and filling in the pages is a very big challenge in the case study part more than the theory part, I believe.
Yes, sir.
So I think there your writing skill matters a lot. So how do we develop this writing skill? So is it like a virtue of your newspaper reading habit, or is there some kind of a practice that can actually build in this writing skill in aspirants?
Sir, from my experience, I think even I I'm a diary writer. Right from childhood, I used to write. It's not like I just write that today was like this. I met this friend, this. Just a page or something about my day. So I think that kind of helped. And reading is very important in my opinion. And for instance, reading Pati Sir's blogs for ethics and trying to build that kind of language,
Right.
trying to get that kind of language into the paper. And maybe for GS2, I think NCRTs, they write so beautifully. They will write the complex topics in a very simple language. And I really try to,
Right.
maybe if I'm able to bring that language, maybe my answers will sound good. I think appreciating the writing and continuous newspaper reading and actively trying to do something. Maybe it can be pressy writing or note making.
Right.
Everything I think helps.
All right. Your point is well noted. And lastly, if you were to start this preparation from day one again, right, what would be your uh, principles that you would factor in your mind while you start your preparation? Now that you have learned about this process for the last 2 years, you know how to crack it. So what would be I'll ask you 2 or 3 important points that you need to keep in your mind when a freshman starts his preparation for this examination.
So first is that working hard is the only option, and we can't be wasting our time. So this is very serious, and we have to be very consistent, and we have to be working very hard. And second is, I think figuring it out is important. Because
Mm.
people will say so many things, but what works for us, I think we only understand. Like, I only know what, for example, the English literature optional. So many people said, don't do this. But
Mm.
I thought that this is what that will work for me. And I think just developing our own competence to figuring it out, and maybe if we are making mistakes, course correcting, being open during the process, that is one. And third is to I think make a positive have a positive view of this whole preparation journey beyond the results. For instance, I thought that it will at least lead me to a stable career with financial independence. So I saw it in a very positive way. And I also thought that it would build discipline in me, build focus. These are good things that I could take away beyond the results of the exam. So these are three things that I would say.
Right. And your motto has been to keep your reading material as simple as possible, right? It's only NCRTs, and at the maximum, you went and read Lakshmikant for your prelims.
Sir, I wouldn't say exactly
Okay.
this. Maybe there are other things. I would be using the internet. I would find some coaching academy material, the test for prelims, the test answer key, for mains also the test answer key, and even podcasts. Some people might say something, some random interview, something might be interesting, and that would help. I wouldn't say A plus B is equal to C. Like I took it from this book and I put it here, but even the books
It's
that
not
I read before, I think it is a culmination of so many things.
of so many things, right? So it's like give constant fodder for your curiosity. Just keep filling in your curiosity, and finally one day you get all the information you need to crack this exam. Right? It happens like that.
Yes, sir. I think curiosity makes the preparation interesting
Interesting.
rather than just doing the same thing. I would listen to podcasts by people from other fields.
Follow. Right.
And their perspectives, I think it will help in ethics. I wouldn't put the same thing that they said, but maybe it will open up something in my head and that might help.
All right. So it has been a very useful session, and thank you for your time. And we wish you the very best for your upcoming year's attempt as well. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to thank you because right from the starting newspaper session, the NCRT session, your essay session, I've attended everything, and my strategy has been very similar to whatever you were talking
Yeah, I can actually relate to that. Whenever you speak all the points, okay, it reminded me of my day's preparation as well. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for giving me your time also during my mails and interview.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Thank you, sir.